Well, it's an honor and a privilege to be here today from the city of Smith Station. Every time I pass through Phenix City, I see the sign that says Gateway to Alabama. I've ordered new signs. Mayor Lowe says the Gateway to Smith Station. For that to be brought in. I always have to start. Now, first and foremost, you have to understand me. For those of you that know me, I don't take life seriously. Life's too short to take seriously. Everything should be fun, but you got to do business. But you can have fun in doing business, and I want to talk some points about that today, but I also want to tell you some stories about being mayor. My name is Fred. Nobody knows me as Fred. That's my dad's name. I am Bubba. I've been Bubba since I was 4 months old, and imagine being a politician from Alabama named Bubba. The stories that I can tell you about being a politician from Alabama, one of the greatest ones was the first Christmas. I got elected and sworn in November. We had our Christmas celebration. I was immediately thrown in to putting up a 25-foot tree and going all over developing a Christmas program. And my city is different than Phenix City. We're a lot smaller. So we are a mayor-led city. I have to be city manager and mayor. So I have to run the day-to-day operations of the city as well as run my business, preach a sermon on Sunday, and raise a kid. So I stay busy. So with that being said, I was part of helping facilitate this. So we had it, and that was beautiful. I went out of my way. I got a female pastor to do the opening prayer for the Christmas celebration. Went off without a hitch. 2 months later, I get a letter in the mail that says I'm being sued for having prayer on the front steps in a public place. Now, the first thing I do, I get scared, you know. And then, you know, you stop and you pray about it, and you think about it, and you give it time. Don't ever make a rash decision. So then I called my attorney, Rick Chancey, and we sat down, and he come up with a genius idea. Why don't we call them? I said, okay, we'll call them. And he and I come up with the idea that we would call them and just see what they wanted. It was Americans United. It was a civil liberties group. And I firmly believe in the separation of church and state, but I had no idea that I was not doing that. You know, being from Alabama, I thought it would be okay. But somebody turned me in. So they called, and I come up with this idea. So they come up with this idea, and we called, and on the conversation, there was a young guy. I could tell he was probably in his 20s, and we're talking on the phone, and I said, boom, the light bulb went off, and I said, this is reverse discrimination. I said, my name is Bubba, I'm from Alabama, and y'all read that. And y'all saw that it was low-hanging fruit that I was redneck. And so I said, well, this is reverse discrimination. You're discriminating against Bubbas. And by the time we got off the phone, he was apologizing to me and saying, I'm sorry. And we reached an agreement that we would just have a moment of silence on the front steps. So Bubba worked out for me. The second great story I must share with you is the beauty pageant story. For those of you who've ever heard me speak know this story well, and it's one of the funniest stories there is. We had a Miss Smith Station. Her name is Jessica Bader, one of the sharpest kids I've ever met in my life. She went on to win Miss Alabama's Outstanding Teen, then went on to win Miss America's Outstanding Teen. She got a full ride scholarship to West Point. That's how smart this kid is. She's going to West Point. She's leader of the debate team at Auburn High School. Sharp kid. But the whole time, she and I, some way, shape, form, or fashion, just clicked. She's a good kid, and we got along so well, and so she'd want me to go to different events to help her or be with her. And so the last event she went to was her welcome home after becoming Miss America. And it was at Glenwood. Mr. Mitchum and the staff was so great to allow us to use that facility. And so I walk in, and I am not kidding, hundreds of the most beautiful girls you have ever seen in your life. And I'm like, man, I am like a fish out of water. I don't belong here. You know, that was never my expertise in high school, was pretty women. So as I'm walking around, so as I'm walking around, I'm most of the time in pageants, they wear the sash. You know, miss this, miss that, miss this. No, nothing. They were just all in dresses. So I'm walking around with I'm a good old boy. I walk around the whole time shaking, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? I'm Bubba. Oh, we've heard about you. We've heard. I was like, well, good to meet you. And so then I start finding out these people's names, and this is how it goes. I say, hey, how you doing? I'm Bubba Copeland. And I'm Meg McGuffin, Miss Alabama, ex-Miss Alabama. I go around, Jessica Proctor, Miss Alabama. And the whole time, I'm supposed to know these people because they're Miss Alabamas, Miss Georgia, Miss America, Miss USA. They're all there, and I'm shaking hands, and I have no idea. And I'm red-faced, I'm embarrassed, and then I'm the keynote speaker. And I get up to speak, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, when I was about 13 years old, I had a dream that I was in a room with a bunch of pretty women. And I said, that dream has come true, although I have made a fool out of myself. And so when I got done, I went to the sponsor and I said, I'm sorry I made a fool of myself. I didn't know any of them. And she goes, that's all right, you made them humble. So I did not schedule a state of the city, so I'm going to tell you guys, I'm not as cool as Eddie is, so I'm just going to tell you guys some things that we have done since taking over at the city. We restructured City Hall to save on payroll and get the maximum performance out of employees. Secured City Hall in an effort to deter any active shooter situations. We installed a 100% surveillance system that controls the doors and the locks, because I don't have to tell you, every one of us are public figures. Every one of us are business leaders. The world is changing, and security should be top priority, and we don't want East Alabama to be a statistic. Nobody, whether it be Phenix City, Phenix City or Smith Station, anyone, we don't want a statistic. So I went about doing that. We did a safe exchange zone in our parking lot that has worked out extremely well. Not only safe exchange for cyber communications or cyber selling, but also on parent drop-offs. Sometimes, you have parents that can't get along, so we have now got a place where they can go and exchange their children and stuff. It's worked out really well with that. We repaved City Hall parking lot in an effort to help our citizens. We took control of our sports facilities. When I took over, our Parks and Recreation was just run like the Wild Wild West. We had no rules and regulations. We hired someone and took over that, and in turn turned around and last year put $10,000 on the bottom line just by doing that. Installed security lights in the park. Worked with all Lee County criminal officials, judges, and the DA to finally put teeth in our ordinances and codes to clean up the city. At this moment, we have 115 violations, and about 7 of them are not complying. But when I took over as the mayor, we had ordinances, but we could not enforce them. It was because we don't have our own police department. So it took a bunch of people, Brandon Hughes, the DA of Lee County, the sheriff. It took a lot of us to get together to figure out how to put teeth into our ordinances. We held a movie night. We improved online security to prevent cyber attacks. I'd like to share this story with you guys so you could have it for your own personal business. Last year, a city in Alabama, Montgomery, one of the areas near Montgomery, got attacked cyberly from Russian outsiders, and they had to pay a ransom. Their attorneys and the Attorney General all suggested they pay to get their information back. So cybersecurity should be your #1 priority wherever you are. If you're at Glenwood or at the city or wherever, cybersecurity, it's going to get worse, people. It's going to get worse. We got renegotiated several contracts to save over $100,000 a year. Made our own Snapchat filters. I know that's not a big deal to y'all, but to teenagers, that's really cool. That's got me a lot of credit with that. We started a City Hall art gallery where you go into City Hall now and you're able to see a local artist, and it changes out every month. I challenge you, this month is Dr. King month, and we have several paintings of Dr. King from his progression from Selma all the way to his statue in Washington. Beautiful, beautiful local artists did those. I challenge you to go by and see those. We repaved 317, Lee Road 317, and County Road 348. Got our own distribution tax. We have 30 new homes right now and 69 waiting in line. 3 active subdivisions, several multiple annexations, a legislative annexation, and at this moment in time, we have a national brand coming to our city that's going to invest $12 million and bring about 40 jobs. Now, to Phenix City, that's not a big deal, and I am not cutting any by no means, but we have no national brands in Smith Station. We have been emailing, my staff and I have been emailing national brands every week to get someone. Finally, we have someone that's coming that's going to bring 40 new jobs and invest. So, with all that being said, I get questions a lot. The question I get is how do you do what you do? How do you do so much? And I don't have to tell you guys in here, every one of you guys' plate is full. And you got to remember, I'm a preacher too, so amen. Your plate is full. You're juggling family, you're juggling work, you're juggling different things. And I want to take a moment to talk about, my son goes to Glenwood. So I'll talk about Frankie Mitchell. One of the most amazing things I have ever seen him do is it matters no sport. It matters no event. He's always there. I think he's cloned himself. But like my son my son's an artist. He's in the music, but he has nothing to do with sports. He can't throw a football, but he can sing like a bird. He's in the band. Mr. Mitchell can be in the band and then be at a basketball game within 5 minutes. I have no idea how he does it. But my point being is we're all busy. Now, I'm a huge Auburn fan, graduated from Auburn in the late 90s. And I think the world of Auburn football. I'm a 20-year season ticket holder. But I got to tell you something. I want to pause for a moment. Nick Saban is by far the greatest coach that ever coached the game, period. Now, some of you older guys, let me argue this with you. You think Bear Bryant is the best coach. Bear Bryant was a great coach, but he did not have the regulations that Nick Saban has. He would give a tennis scholarship to a kicker and have him on a football team standing 3 deep. Nick Saban has to make sure that he is right on the point. That's why you see him dancing on Facebook and coming to Phenix City to talk to parents. He is the best there is. I will give you an example. 6 national championships, 03, 09, 11, 12, 15, and 17. 1 MAC championship, 7 SEC championships, 11 SEC Western Division champions. You see, you don't become successful at what you do without a plan and without execution of that plan. That's what I'm going to wrap up with today, is how we do that plan. As a mayor, I get 3 questions every single day. Every single day. Number 1, when am I getting married? Number 2, when are we getting sewage for all of Smith Station? I tell everybody both of those are very expensive. But the 3rd question I get is, how are we doing in Smith Station, and how do we do what we do? And so that's what I want to tell you. I tell people, running a city is like running a business. And when you run a business, you must make sure you're effective. Sweat the small stuff. People tell you don't sweat the small stuff. Sweat the small stuff. And let me tell you why. It's because being in retail, in the grocery business, you deal with pennies, not dollars. If you throw away a banana, that's a penny. At the end of the month, it will add up to at least $100. So you make sure that every single thing is used, reused, and reclaimed. Don't throw stuff away. So with the city, you got to teach people to have that mindset. You got to teach people to make sure that you don't waste money. I don't have to explain to you, the federal government wastes money like crazy. The state of Alabama wastes money like crazy. If we were to have a small retail business owner run our nation, where would we be? So my point being is, do sweat the small stuff, because a brick house is not built 1 wall at a time. It's built 1 brick at a time. So make sure you do sweat the small stuff. Number 2, do things that others can't and won't do. Work late, come in early. Be an example, because let me tell you something, people are watching you. People are watching you if you're a judge. People are watching you if you're a headmaster. People are watching you if you're a choir director. People are watching you in what you do, and they will pick up on what you do. So do things that others won't do. Set goals and pace yourself and achieve them. Guys, I recently started something called penny trading. On your phone, something called Acorns. Anybody ever heard of that, Acorns? You have a credit card, and we use our debit cards correctly. You can link this up to your phone. And go, when you swipe it, it takes the change that you used to take out of your pocket and put in your jar. It takes the change that rounds it up to the nearest dollar. I have been doing that since October. I'm well over $500, because they take that change and invest it into penny stocks, and it grows. It's crazy. Try it if you ever get bored or you want to see how your money grows. So my point being is set goals. Set goals that you're going to do something, and pace yourself slowly and get those things done. But we as humans all the time hurry up and try to get things done because we want them done to get them off our plate. Perfection is not achieved overnight. And I'll go back to Nick Saban. I saw a YouTube video on him. His wife says he takes 4 days off a year. He goes to the lake, got a multi-million-dollar place, and he goes right back to work. Not saying you need to do that. I'm just saying pace yourself, set goals. The next way to be successful in running a city, running a business, is relationships. This is by far the most important part of success. It doesn't matter what you do, work, church, home, Little League baseball, it has politics in it. Everything has politics in it. Your phone, your wife or your husband, it's political. You know, who's going to get up and turn the light off? Can I use the remote tonight? Or what have you. Everything is political. And if you don't think that Little League baseball doesn't have politics in it, go coach. You know, it's so funny to get on Facebook. I do believe Facebook is the clearinghouse for the mentally insane. I really do. I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a guy that used to work in Phenix City. And I go on Facebook, and I look and I think to myself, I'm like, what is the level of insanity that this is? Even Facebook has politics. The one thing you will learn as a politician, and there's a lot of people here, is keep your mouth shut. And you don't have to shoot at every rabbit that pokes his head out of a hole. Some rabbits just need, if you let a rabbit run long enough, it'll kill itself. You know what I mean? So just when Brother Lowe, when the rabbit raises his head, just watch it. Don't shoot. So, as I said, keep your mouth shut. I say this: learn to be tactful and diplomatic. Those are some things that you got to do. Growing up, I had bosses that were old school, and I remember they had no idea what tact was, and they had no idea what diplomacy was. I had a boss one time that Lord, he's gone on to be with the Lord now, I hope, and and you had no facial hair whatsoever. I'm still today scared to grow any facial hair. And if you come in the store, it was 280 bypass. It used to be the old South Star. Everybody remember that besides me? I was a bag boy there. And if you had any stubble, he took a single blade Bic out of a package and you had to dry shave in front of him. And I remember that. One time I was going to be cool and grow me a wider out, you know, back there when Tombstone first come out. And I had to dry shave, man. Oh, my goodness. So my point being is be diplomatic. Build relationships and cultivate them. I want to tell y'all a story as I conclude this I love history. I study history. The story of a guy by the name of Henry Knox, which Fort Knox is named after. He was a bookseller. He was a retailer, and he owned a bookstore. And then when Cornwallis, they come and invaded Boston, he abandoned his store and went out to join the militia that General Washington was over. But a lot of people don't realize that him and General Washington already had a relationship. He was the #1 seller to George Washington. He sold him books. And they had already cultivated a relationship. And as they go out, it looked bleak for the militia of Americans that they were not going to be able to survive this siege at Boston. They run out of things to do, run out of ideas to come up with. And Henry Knox come up with the idea. He said, you guys have already captured Fort Ticonderoga, right? And he said, yes. He said, did you leave the weapons there? And he said, yes, they did. And he said, let me get a train of people and go back and get those weapons. And as they go back to get those weapons, they went 300 miles over frozen earth from Boston to Fort Ticonderoga, which is right around New York City. And as they got these weapons, they took mule trains and drove back 300 miles and got back within a month, in which they then began to impact the siege there at Boston that Cornwallis was holding. And Henry Knox was able to sustain and go on to win the Revolutionary War just by this one pivotal decision that Washington allowed Henry Knox to go and do. So my point being is if it was not for that decision, where would we be now as America? You see, there's a history all over. One of my other greatest stories is a doctor by the name of George Washington Carver from Tuskegee. If people say, well, Alabama, people say, well, Auburn. If it would not have been for George Washington Carver, there would be no Alabama. There was a great boll weevils had come and wiped out every crop that we had had shortly after the Civil War. And George Washington Carver went on to learn and study what things would grow in our earth, and it was peanuts. And they come up with 55 different uses for peanuts that sustained Alabama through the Dust Bowl, through that time. So you see, people making decisions in small points are big, but how does that affect us? You see, we as leaders, as I conclude, we as leaders make a difference. People watch us. So 2 things I said: everything you do, run it like a business. Number 2, love people and have relationships And lastly, sweat the small stuff. And I try not to confuse Jesus Christ with business or politics, but I want to do this if I can. I want you to remember this, that you are the only Bible that some people will ever read. So make sure that the way you carry yourself, you don't have to tell people you're a Christian. They know. They know. So make sure that you go out of your way to share the love of Jesus Christ with people through relationships and through taking care of your business. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.